Thanks for having me. All right, so just real quick, my name is Walker Reynolds. I'm a solutions architect for a systems integrator. Actually, I own the integrator. I'm also an educator and a consultant. So what I primarily spend my time doing, I have a company called 4.0 Solutions. We run IoT.university, you can look it up, where we educate engineers and leaders in manufacturing on how to do digital transformation. Like everyone here has heard digital transformation, right? They know what it is, they're familiar. I'm going to talk about some definitions again this year. I presented last May, so a year ago, May, and I did my foundational presentation on digital transformation, Industry 4.0, why is Tesla awesome, why is Amazon awesome. We had a whole conversation around what those topics are, and then I went through some examples and showed you what a manufacturer's journey looks like in digital transformation. Okay. This year, I'm going to do an update. So the fourth industrial revolution is over, and the fifth industrial revolution has started. And most people don't know that. Okay. So real quick, the fourth, does everybody know what the fourth industrial revolution actually is? Okay. So I'm going to just do a quick background on the industrial revolution. There's all these buzzwords. There's IIoT, right? So that's the industrial Internet of Things. So that's a really simple one to define. The industrial Internet of Things is the Internet of Things for industry. And an Internet of Things is just a bunch of smart things connected together. That's all it is. And what does it take to be a smart thing? You have to have network connectivity, and you have to be able to inform the network of something about yourself. That's it. So a human being is a smart thing, as long as they are connected to a terminal in an organization, right? The industrial Internet of Things is the internet of all the things connected together in industry, not in one organization, but in all of industry. This is a really, really important distinction. Last year, I talked about why is Tesla awesome, and I'll ask that question again. First off, does everybody agree Tesla is awesome? Yes. Okay. Yes. So then the question is, why is Tesla awesome? Why is it over the last 5 years, Toyota, General Motors, BMW, Ford, and Joshua owns, who's the other? Daimler. Have all stated that Tesla was overpriced, their stock was overpriced, that they weren't really all that special in the market, and that the market would ultimately catch up to them. All those companies said those things, okay? And today, the number one most popular vehicle in the world for Q1 2023 was what? The Model Y. When was the last time a Toyota vehicle was not the number one selling vehicle in the world? 30 years ago, 29 years ago. But the question is, why is Tesla awesome? It's not that they are. The question is why. And what I'm going to hope to show today, I'm going to show you an example of one of our clients. I'm going to try to show you how manufacturers, what does the industrial Internet of Things look like under the hood? Like, what does it physically look like? And then what I'm going to try and show you is, what do you do with that thing that you create under the hood, right? We have 3 clients. I didn't talk about this last year. So in the last year, we have 3 clients who have used a very common industrial Internet of Things architecture called the unified namespace, which I will show you today. Okay. One is a chemical manufacturer that makes ink for printing presses. One is a flexible packager that makes packaging for pretzels and Doritos. And so whenever you get a bag and you open it up, that's actually been printed on. So one of the clients does prints packaging. And the last customer uses the packaging for their soft drink. Okay. It turns out that all 3 of them were our client, and we didn't know. We didn't know that they were links in the same supply chain. So that the chemical manufacturer actually made the ink for the literal flexible packager. And the flexible packager made the flexible packaging for the soda company. They were all our client. They all had our architecture. And we discovered by accident they were all working with one another. So what we did was we went to all three of those clients and we said, we have a link upstream from you that is part of our architecture. We could literally connect all three of your companies together digitally, and you would be able to share data between one another to improve your processes. So we went to the ink manufacturer and we said, ink manufacturer, if you could have any data from the flexible packager who uses your ink while they were using your ink, what would you want? And they said, oh, that's easy. We would love to know what they're printing, on what printing press are they printing on, how fast are they printing, what's the web tension, what's the relative humidity, and what's the temperature in the facility when they're using the ink. So that when we get a quality return, we could look at the digital data we've collected while they were running our ink on their printing press. And when we went to the soda manufacturer, we said, what would you want to know from the flexible packager? They said, oh, that's easy. We want to know when our packaging is going to be done. We want to know in real time, what is the status of our order, so that when that packaging can be delivered to our back door, and instead of going into inventory, we could just drive it to the production line that it's going to be used on. Okay. Tesla's been doing that since 2010. Every single supplier who works for Tesla is part of Tesla's digital ecosystem called Tesla Warp. And it is a digital ecosystem created by Tesla that is open. I also asked you the question last year, why is Amazon awesome? Everybody agrees Amazon's awesome. Okay. And they're awesome because you can buy anything you want from Amazon, shipped to your door in 48 hours or less, 98% of the time. And last year we had Michael Brown, who at the time worked for Amazon. He was an architect at Amazon. Today he's for a provider who works with Amazon. He moved on to take over a big group. But we asked the question, how does Amazon achieve that? How does Amazon get us everything we want for the best price in 48 hours or less? By the way, it's 99% of Americans. 99% of the American population. Lots of smart people in this room. If I were to say to everyone in this room, we're going to build a company that's going to get anything anyone wants, 99% of Americans, 98% of the time, at the best price in 48 hours or less, tell me how you would do that. All these smart people in this room, we would put our heads together, right? We have a new company, right? We have a startup over here. What you do is you sit down in front of a whiteboard and you try to figure out how to achieve that. How do you achieve that? The answer is you don't know. Unless you were here last year and we told you how Amazon does it, you don't know. Here's how they do it. They predict what you're going to buy with 98% accuracy 60 days before you buy it. Now, I've told you how they do it. How do they do that? So now the new mandate to all the smart people in this room is, what we're going to do is we're going to predict what people buy 60 days before they buy it with 98% accuracy.
Huge computers, lots of data, lots of iterations, continuously,
right,
all the time.
Everything. Does everybody know what data is?
That's fun.
Data is something that happened. It's an event. It's something that happened and when. That's all it is. Data is never actionable. That is, just by looking at a single data point, you cannot do anything with that. Okay, so if you can look at a data point, a transition, an event, and what time that happened, and you can act on it, that's not data. That's information. Okay, we take data and we turn it into information, digital data. We've been collecting data in the US economy, we're going to talk about the American economy, since the second industrial revolution, really, with clipboards and paper and the assembly lines first came. We've been collecting data. Okay, scientists were collecting data before that. How good is the data that human beings collect? Josh? Terrible. Okay. Not only is it terrible, it is abjectly terrible. So do any of you work in a place where human beings collect data, write it down on pieces of paper, or put it in spreadsheets? It is fucking excellent. It is absolute garbage. World-class data. If you, the Japanese, who are incredibly obedient, they're incredibly diligent, they're incredibly committed to following the rules. But of all societies in the world, they are the most committed. Do you want to know how reliable their data is? 60% fidelity. So the reason Tesla is awesome and the reason Amazon is awesome is because they were the first two companies to understand you cannot trust human beings collecting data. That's number one. Number two, all data matters. So when we talk about digital transformation is about becoming a company that understands that all data in the business, digital data, collected off of smart things, so off of computers and PLCs and sensors. We have somebody here who does vibration sensors. We have somebody, you guys do hardware ops for managing all of the IoT infrastructure. We have industrial PC vendors. That creates digital data, events, okay? Tesla and Amazon collects all of that. Every single event, without exception. And then they use algorithms, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, specifically regression. I'm not going to get into all the deep technical, but regression is basically looking at data and saying, for every value X, what is the likely outcome Y? Okay, so let's say I wanted to draw a corollary between the set point on my thermostat and the temperature in my room. Okay, those are directly related. We know that if we set the thermostat down, the temperature should go down, right? But what if I open the window and I turn the thermostat up? Is it possible that the temperature is not going to go up or go down? Right? There's a variable that I have to take into account, right? Machine learning is all about using software to find correlations between data points. There's two main types, regression and clustering. Regression is testing a hypothesis you came up with. I want to use an algorithm for every value X. What's the likely outcome Y? Clustering is trying to find patterns in data you can't see with the naked eye. Relationships you are not aware of. Tesla and Amazon have mastered the art of finding those relationships. Okay, so that's the foundation of the industrial Internet of Things, Industry 4, digital transformation. Digital transformation is when you're trying to become like Tesla and Amazon. Okay, that's digital transformation. What's happened over the last year? We did this presentation last year. What's happened over the last year is that the organizations, the companies who are most digitally mature have become more digitally mature at an exponential rate. Okay, so what this chart here is a Industry 4.0 distribution from a data set that we have. We do assessments of manufacturers all over the world. We have vendors do reports of assessments, and we have manufacturers self-report their data. So 1/3 of the data in this data set, 1,381 manufacturers, 1/3 of that data we collected ourselves, 1/3 of that data came from vendors, and 1/3 of that data came from the end user. Last year, if you looked at this distribution, this is basically digital maturity. Digital maturity on a scale of 0 to 100. So if I'm a digitally mature organization, I have a really high maturity score. Tesla is number 1 on the list over here, and they have a score of 87. They don't even have a perfect digital score. A perfect score is 100. Not only are they the most digitally mature organization in the world, it is not. Number 2 is 82.5. And by the way, on the edges, 2 standard deviations from the mean, that is like 1,000 miles. How did Tesla become today? The Model Y, the highest selling vehicle in the world, Q1 2023. Yet in 2018, Toyota thought that they were driving off a cliff. The answer is because Tesla is so digitally mature, 1 year is 5 years to them.
How do you define maturity?
Across 10 pillars. So there are 10 Industry 4.0 pillars. They're scored on a scale of 1 to 5. So, network infrastructure, leadership, strategy, there's 10 of them. You get scored on a scale of 1 to 5 across those 10 pillars. We add that score together, multiply by 2, and that's your maturity score. Tesla's an 87, okay? And by the way, they don't have to be whole numbers. So you can have a score of 1.75 on infrastructure, okay? If you look though at this distribution, those of you who do statistical analysis, you will notice the 2 standard deviations below the mean. That is, all the manufacturers who are below being average digital maturity, they are moving further and further away in the wrong direction from those who are most digitally mature. Okay. One of the things that I've talked about on our YouTube channel is the importance of having a digital strategy. And that digital strategy is all about moving in that direction on this distribution. Guess what's going to happen to basically everyone who's from here that way? There's no chance they'll survive. There's no way to save it at this point. They are dead companies. If I give you the list of the companies here, it's about 700 or so. If I give you that list of 700 companies and I tell you do not invest in those companies or short their stocks, they will be absolute guaranteed winners. Guaranteed winners. There's no way for them to save themselves. They better have their exit strategy in place. This is, by the way, this is not a message that I gave before this year. In fact, the first time I gave that message was 2 weeks ago. What happened? The answer is ChatGPT. Okay. So everybody here played with ChatGPT? Okay. Who here believes the hype? Who here thinks it's overhyped? Right? If you do, who thinks it's overhyped? Okay. It is not overhyped. The problem is in 2018, Toyota predicted that Tesla would be dead. In 2023, they are a decade ahead of Toyota. Okay. Here's the problem. Right now, ChatGPT is 88%. The GPT-4 is about 88% accurate. If you use the correct prompts, you can increase the accuracy of their response to what? Does anybody know what the time end is? It's 96%. If you use ChatGPT-4 and GPT-3 to create an auto GPT that talks to one another, how accurate can you get those responses? 99%. So what you do is, as a human being, you're the problem. GPT is not the problem. GPT is not the problem. The human being's the problem. So I'm going to show you something we've done. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 examples of just how legit ChatGPT is. Are there any PLC programmers in here? Okay, here we go. You probably already read this. I put it on LinkedIn. Okay. Last year, we wrote a PLC program that took 160 man-hours to write. Okay, 163. I did it a month ago with ChatGPT in front of 80 students in 53 minutes. From scratch. With ChatGPT. 53 minutes. Okay. 160 hours, 53 minutes. Last year, I created a new vision system. I own a company called fullstrength.ai model. We used a small NVIDIA Jetson Nano and a little Sony camera sensor. I took 8 months and I wrote a vision system that could predict the maximum weight a person could lift on any given day for the deadlift. Does everybody know what a deadlift is? Bend over, pick up a bar. Then we sponsored the Shaw Classic. Everybody know who Brian Shaw is? Okay, world's strongest man, 4 times world's strongest man. He does a big strongman event in Colorado, in Loveland, Colorado, at the Budweiser Event Center. We reached out to Brian and I said, hey, I have this vision system and I want to collect data off the athletes who are doing deadlift at your show in August of 2022. Can we sponsor the show? Absolutely. There was a guy there named Alexei Novikov, who's a Ukrainian powerlifter. We had our vision system sitting on the floor. We had already tested this with our powerlifting team. I'm a powerlifter. I knew that it was relatively accurate. I knew that it was predicting my 1 rep max pretty damn close. But we realized at the very beginning of the competition that the technology we had developed in this vision system was much more accurate than I thought it was. And we predicted 5 rounds before Alexei Novikov broke the world record in the deadlift. He lifted 1,210 pounds. We predicted it 5 rounds before it happened. We told everyone in the VIP section he was going to break the world record 5 rounds before it happened. And we also predicted that he would be able to lift 1,272 pounds. And in a post-meet interview, when he was being interviewed, They asked him, man, that went up really, really easy. How much do you think you could have lifted? And he said, 1,270 pounds. And we did that with a camera that didn't even touch him. Now, it took me 8 months to write that program. 8 months, start to finish. I am not a data scientist. Okay? I did the exact same thing using ChatGPT. How long do you think it took me? 4.5 hours. 8 months, 4.5 hours. 3 years ago, I spent $15,000 on a human resource attorney to write our human resource plan for 4.0 solutions. She cost me $13,500. She wrote our employee handbook. She created all of our benefits. Cost us nearly $15,000. Jared, who is 19 years old, just graduated from college, in 2 hours on a Saturday night, recreated the exact same program, and he makes $22,000 a year. All right. So is anyone not a believer in GPT right now? Okay. What's your objection?
I'm a systems engineer for Raytheon.
Okay.
Our sensors have tens of thousands of hours of software on them. I don't believe that a piece of software could duplicate that.
Here's the problem. Right now, I can take the GPT model. I can take all of your documentation. I can retrain GPT-4 with all your documentation. And now your software is worthless.
But that's after the fact. When we're developing the software, it's iterative. We don't know what we're doing ahead of time.
Exactly. But I'm going to show you the difference. Okay. I'm going to show you what it is that Tesla and Amazon does that makes that point move. Right now, there are people in here who own companies, right? You develop hardware, you create software. You guys are creating software, right? You're the CTO, you write code, right? If I were to bring in 20 different chief technical officers to write the code you're writing, okay, what I would get is 20 different pieces of software that look completely different under the hood that do exactly the same thing. Okay? If you are in the business of writing software that way, you will be out of business before your software is done. That's the point. The point is the market will select you for death because you will never be able to write that code from scratch. And I'm going to show you an example here. I did a business integration. Okay, 4.0 Solutions uses 2 primary pieces of software. I had it quoted first, and then I did it myself. And I'm going to show you everything. I'm going to show you exactly how it works. But we use Stripe for our payment system, and we use Zoho for our CRM. We have 10,000 customers in our IoT.University CRM. We have those same 10,000 in our Zoho CRM, and we have 10,000 in the payment system. Is that what in there? Okay. So we got 10,000 in the payment system, 10,000 in Zoho, 10,000 in, those 2. Our team needed to know, one of the challenges that we faced was when people's renewals come up every month, their renewals come up, whose subscription is renewing this month? Well, the problem is we have 2 completely different systems written by 2 completely different organizations. Ad hoc. There was no rhyme or reason to the way you're writing right now is based on your experience purely. There's no standard. There's no method to your madness other than experience. And his experience is different than your experience. Tesla and Amazon doesn't operate that way. Toyota does. General Motors does. Walmart does. Walmart's business systems, the people who work, they have 22,000 software developers at Walmart. Guess how many software developers Tesla has? Guess how big their warp team is? Anybody care to gander? It's under 30 people. Under 30 people. Okay, what I'm going to show you here, what we did with our business integration, using artificial intelligence is what we're talking about today. I'm going to show you some other industrial examples. The important part isn't starting from zero and then leveraging artificial intelligence to solve problems. It's starting from a common infrastructure and laying artificial intelligence and machine learning on top of that infrastructure. And the infrastructure that you have at Tesla, the structure of the data, the technology they use to collate that data is the same as what they do at Amazon. Remember, I talked about the famous Amazon email in 2002. Everybody familiar with that famous email last year? All right, let me explain real quick. In 2002, 4 years after the fourth industrial revolution started in 1998 when TCP/IP won the protocol wars. Okay, so when TCP/IP won in 98, the fourth industrial revolution started. Why? Because the moment TCP/IP won, you could take all the data on the plant floor and all the data in the IT department and put them together, and you didn't have to do it over a serial network. Until 1998, you had to do it over serial. In 1998, when TCP/IP won, you could connect them together, and suddenly we had automation data and business decision-making data put together. So we could take the same technology we use to automate processes to automate business decisions. Things like scheduling, things like which raw material lots we should use in which batches. Okay, we could automate business decisions. All right, and that started in 1998. Just 4 years later, 4 years into the fourth industrial revolution, Jeff Bezos woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and he said, wow, we share entirely too much data manually. We have too many spreadsheets. We share too much data through email. We're not doing that anymore. He wrote an email, you can Google it. Starting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, you will build services for all data and information. It'll be common, it'll be structured, it'll be standardized. If you don't do this, you'll be fired. How many CEOs threaten to fire people in emails? If you work for a really legacy organization, you work at, say you work for Jamie Dimon or you work for Jim Farley at Ford, they would never threaten to fire anyone in an email because that would make them a dick. God forbid. Jeff Bezos said, you will be fired if you don't do this. And guess what? They turned over 11% of their workforce in the next 18 months. 1 out of 10 people got fired for violating that rule. You know what that turned into? Amazon Web Services. And you know what Amazon Web Services turned into? 99% of Americans getting whatever they want within 48 hours at the absolute best price. You cannot compete with Amazon. The only way to beat Amazon is to break them apart. They're that far ahead. No one will ever catch them. It is impossible. The only way they will ever be defeated is to put terrible leadership in who will run the company into the ground. That's it. They're that far ahead. You cannot beat Tesla. I will tell you right now. Tesla cannot be beat. Go ahead.
A lot of people are saying that Model S and Model X aren't selling any, and that Tesla hasn't gone out and said, here's our new models that are coming out in the next 2 or 3 years. And there's a lot of concern that people are going to tire of the same model, buy the same Model 3 and stuff like that. And sales are going to go down just because of the fact that people like new things, like different things.
What is new?
As you find it, right?
What is new?
Well, to shallow people, it's a car that nobody else has. It's a cool looking car. It's a color. It's a style. It's a thing that makes you stand out.
In Tesla, you know what new is? It's the same new you get in your smartphone. Who here has an Apple iPhone? Okay, right?
No, I know.
You got an iPhone, right? What has changed about the iPhone since the iPhone 11?
Everything.
If we're looking in the old way, the new color, the new shape, the new
Get rid of the
nothing, basically nothing. Chip and software. In Tesla, you know how you get your new car? Through software updates. I own a Model S. I have a 2022 Model S, which I've had for 18 months. Jared has a Model 3, which he's had for a couple of months. I checked this actually yesterday. Since January of 2022, I've received 19 updates that included 41 additional features. And 2 recalls.
Over the air.
Over the air. Well, he drives my car. He drives my car.
I'm the one who opens the recalls when Tesla says.
here's the point. The point is that when you get into a Tesla, Tesla redefined what a car is. That's what they did. So the idea, I worked in tier one automotive. I worked for Borg Warner Automotive. We made chain for Ford. Ford and Nissan were my clients. I worked for their product engineers. Okay. Do you know how quickly Ford updated their cars? 1 year at a time. They collated complaints. They collated requests. They had an 8-week outage, and then they redefined the new model of the car. How has that been working out for Ford over the last 5 years? Well, it hasn't, because Tesla has redefined what a car is. What if I told you that the advantage of driving a Tesla is that all the Teslas are the same? How many product engineers does Tesla have? Care to take a guess? 8. Right? Here's my point. My point is that with each technological iteration, we redefined the art of the possible. Right? One of the biggest, all of you have been, I've been in my career for I started in 99. So whatever that is, 24 years. I've been in this industry 24 years. Okay? When I was young, straight out of college, I knew nothing. And the advantage of knowing nothing is that I didn't self-limit. So I didn't know that 10 years ago we tried to do that. So I suggested it again. Right? And what did all the old guys tell me? We already tried to do that. We tried to do that 20 years ago. It didn't work. Well, that works. That applies when each technological iteration takes 40 years. The second industrial revolution started in 1900, give or take. The third industrial revolution started in 1969, 69 years later. The fourth industrial revolution started in 1998. That's not 69 years. And the fifth industrial revolution started in November of 2022, 24 years later. And guess when the sixth industrial revolution is going to start? 10 years from now. That is Moore's law. By the way, anybody who objects and says Moore's law only applies to transistors, they don't know what they're talking about. It applies to all technological innovation. Why? Because as you move up the innovation S-curve, you get more and more return at a faster and faster rate, assuming you do things right. Okay, common infrastructure is an important part. Okay, so real quick, manufacturers. For those of you who don't work in manufacturing, all manufacturing is the same. This is a very, very important concept. If you work in manufacturing and you think manufacturing is complicated, you're wrong. It is not complicated. All manufacturers do exactly the same thing. They sell stuff, they plan to manufacture it, they execute the manufacturing, they monitor and control their plants, they monitor and control their machines, they have inventory for things they consume and things they produce, they ship stuff in and out, they get paid and they pay their bills, and they do it all over again. Those are the nodes of manufacturing and industry. Doesn't matter what industry you talk about, power generation, oil and gas, they're all the same. Except they all do things differently if they're a legacy company. But the smart, innovative, transformative leaders realized, wait a minute. What we need to do is we need to turn our business, this circle, into a node in a much larger ecosystem. Me, Tesla, needs to be able to talk to Saint-Gobain. I need to have insight. Saint-Gobain makes the passenger windows, that makes the windows for Tesla vehicles. So if you have a driver's side door, a window, those are made by Saint-Gobain. How do most manufacturers do that in supply chain? They'll send an order, they'll get a lead time of 12 weeks. Where's that order? They get on the phone. Hey, where's that order? Hey, where are my windows? Oh, they'll be there. We're shipping them tomorrow, right? Checks in the mail. A couple days later, oh, hey, cataclysmic failure. It's going to be another 12 weeks. Does that ever happen to Tesla? No. Why?
Getting the data from this.
Tesla has insight into the reality, the actual reality at Saint-Gobain. You know why? Because Saint-Gobain doesn't have a choice. To be one of their suppliers, you have to join their ecosystem. And their ecosystem is open. Okay? So manufacturing is simple. Digitally transforming happens the exact same way for every organization. Last year, we talked about the first part of step one. So you said Raytheon? Okay. So the challenge Raytheon has is the Department of Defense, right? The challenge that Raytheon has is that Raytheon doesn't, while they compete, they don't really compete, right? They have an advantage. So some of the things I'm saying here don't apply yet to Raytheon. They will apply once the American taxpayer makes them apply, okay? When the delta between paying for legacy far outstrip, I mean, it becomes so obvious that we're wasting so much money paying for that inefficiency. Okay, you asked the question about people aren't going to buy the Model S, they're not going to buy the Model X, they're not going to buy the Model Y. Tesla continues to increase production at a rate of 18 to 25% quarter over quarter, and yet the lead time to buy a Model S is still 60 days. Okay, people are buying the vehicles. Not a single analyst, by the way, 0 analysts predicted the Model Y would be the best-selling vehicle in Q1 of 2023. Of 600 and something analysts, 0 predicted it would be the best-selling vehicle in the world. Guess who knew it was already in March of Q1? Tesla. Yeah, go ahead.
That's why you don't trust your analysts.
That's right. Yeah.
Dollars or earnings estimates, that's stuff. Because again, your point is that these 30 analysts I know are still doing Wall Street when they get back to time.
This is a very good point. Here, this is what I say all the time. And by the way, everyone here, you know, who's on my team, they hear this shit all the time, and it's got to drive them crazy. But yeah, it has driven them. But what I hope to leave everybody with when we leave today is where are we, and what does the next year look like? Okay? And what should you do when you leave? Like at Raytheon, what should you do at Raytheon? You should go to Raytheon, go to the highest ranking person you know of, and ask them this question: what is our digital strategy? And when they go, wow, what does that mean? You go, what is our plan to make data the primary commodity in our business? That's what anybody who works for any manufacturer should do. If the highest ranking person you know says, I don't know what a digital strategy is, or we have no plan to make data our primary commodity, go get a different job. It is not that hard, I'm telling you, because you are working for a dying company. And this is not me trying to scare you. I'm just telling you the truth. Okay, so you go ask, what is Raytheon's digital strategy? By the way, one of my co-ops at Borg Warner is named Austin Black. He's at Raytheon's been at Raytheon now for 15 years in the Northeast. One of the single most gifted developer I ever worked with in my entire career. And to this day, I still mention it. Say, Raytheon snatched him up from me. Okay. Last year when we talked about this, we talked about what does digital transformation look like for manufacturers? If they want to become like Tesla, what do they have to do? Well, they do it in 2 steps. Step 1 takes 3 to 5 years. And I'm going to show you a client that we did this for over a 2-year period. Okay. But the first part of digital transformation is connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize. So connect to all the data. So PLCs and switches and telemetry, collect the data. Okay. And this is where unified namespace comes in. Collect it in a normalized way so that whether Matt is collecting it or whether Walker is collecting it or whether Alex Klein, if you look at any of our architects, if you go to our data infrastructures, that is the data that we're collecting for companies, they look exactly the same. I can take Matt and I can put him on a project somebody else is looking on, and they know exactly what it looks like under the hood. It would be the equivalent of you having 10 different software developers, and they could move back and forth between products. Everything would always look the same. This is the advantage of GPT, by the way. Advantage of GPT. You can write your code however you want to, and then you could put your code into GPT. You can say, give me the standardized way it needs to be written, and then you paste it in. So now I have 10 different developers writing code exactly the same way. And by the way, the vast majority of people in software development, when I say that to them, you watch their eyes go, whoa, how did I not think of that? Well, Tesla did 13 years ago. Okay. All right. Well, what we've been doing is to connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize. What's been happening over the last year for these companies to become more and more digitally mature, they've been finding patterns. Okay. They've been predicting problems. They've been reporting what those problems will be, and they've been solving them, mitigating. Okay. And then the big step, the second big step is digital supply chain. All right. So I'm going to show you an example of a client that we did. So this is that flexible packager that we told you about, little mom and pop. They're based here in Dallas and over off of Tom Landry. The guy who owns the company, he was a big executive for a big flexible packager in Europe for a very long time. He was a chief executive, actually. He left, came back to the United States, back to Dallas, which is where he's from. All of his kids were here. And he decided to buy a small flexible packager to give to his kids. It was a dying, failing organization. He spends, I don't know, a couple, 20 million maybe, buys the building and buys the facility. They bring us in. One of their engineers brings us in, calls me and Matt. Matt and I walk in, and they say, all we want you to do is take Kepware. Anybody know what Kepware is, right? Kepware is a piece of software that talks to PLCs. And it basically allows us to connect all of our machines together in one network. Matt and I walked on the plant floor. We looked and we were like, holy cow, they have state-of-the-art equipment here. They're not talking to any of it. We're talking Siemens D445 motion controllers. Some of their presses were $20 million presses. Absolute state-of-the-art technology, and they were totally blind. They weren't connected to any of it. So we say, you know what? We'll go ahead and connect your equipment together for you. We'll do that. But we want to propose something. We want to talk to your owner. So we go talk to the owner, this older guy, super fucking brilliant, does not screw around. He's the guy who yells at you and calls you dumb if you drop the ball. He's that guy. And I said, you know what I want you to do here? I'm going to ask you a favor. You have a $25 million printing press over there, and there is more value in the data in that press than you could possibly imagine. So what I want you to do is I want you to give me permission to connect to that machine and do whatever I want to it. I'll pay for it myself. I will show you what the art of the possible is. It'll take 12 weeks. It'll probably cost $25,000 to $40,000. I'll pay for it. We'll present in 12 weeks. If you like it, you buy it, and we do the rest of your facility. If you don't, we just pick up the server and leave. So we connected to that server. We connected to that press. We connected to a database that was on that press that they didn't know about. We connected to their shop floor system, which was like a homebrew SQL backend thing where they scanned barcodes. And after 12 weeks, we came back and we revealed to them just how inefficiently their facility was operating. There were 4 operators that ran on that machine. We never talked to any of those operators. The first thing that we did, we said, this is what the data has revealed to us. This girl right here is your best operator, and it's not even close. This guy right here is your second best operator. He's pretty good. This third guy has no idea what he's doing. And this fourth guy is your rogue guy. His name was Hector. And they said, "Who did you go talk to them?" And we said, no. The data revealed that to us. They already knew that through their personalities. But we proved it with digital data, the efficacy of each operator. Number 2, we showed them by connecting all this data together that none of their operators, they run hundreds and hundreds of products, or thousands of products actually. And they may run a product, they may print a product in April of 2022 and not run it again for 18 months. We were able to connect together all the data on that press and show them that now there was this one product they had run 60 times over a 2-year window. They never once set the machine up the same way twice. The web tensions were never set the same way twice. The tunnel temperatures were never set the same way twice out of 60 production runs. So what we did was, this is their journey, a 2-year journey. Well, it's 2-year journey to when we were really done. We've been doing ongoing support ever since. We digitally transformed the whole organization on this one common infrastructure. I'm going to show you what their data looks like. They used to be a $25 million company. So they do $25 million in revenue per year. So the first thing that we did was we just put data on the screen that informed operators. Okay. Now, by the way, there's nothing fancy, but like, Randy, you could do this, right? You could build this, right? You and I could get the same functional specification, and we would build the thing that looks the same, but it's totally different under the hood. The data, the way it's structured, all looks different. Okay? We don't do that. Our data always looks the same. So if you bring in an engineer and they look at this screen, an engineer for our company knows exactly how this is built. Oh, there's a namespace for this panel. There's a namespace for that panel. There's a namespace for that panel. There's a namespace for that panel. And then there's a namespace for how that window is built. So when we open the window, we actually read some data that tells us how to build the window. And then we connect the data to each of these little objects there. Our engineers would know exactly how it's built. And the reason that we're one of the fastest growing systems integrators in the world is because we develop that way. It takes us 1 hour for every other integrators, 10 hours. Okay. This, and then a 2-year journey yielded a $25 million return. They spent $1 million total, 900,000, I think it was, over 2 years. And they doubled their revenue and profit at year 2, 25 million to 50. And by the way, when we asked the owner of the company, how efficient were they? That is, at what efficiency level you're operating. Are you producing as much as you possibly could? He said 80%. So he believed there was only 20% gain. We gave him 100% gain. Totally blind. And by the way, this is the way it looks. When there's an architecture I talk about all the time called the unified namespace. So this is what the data looks like under the hood. So when you hear me say unified namespace, what I'm talking about is connecting to data all across a business, all across an organization, and organizing it in a semantic hierarchy, the way you do it in a file share. Okay, so for those of you who hear me say UNS and you always wonder about this unified namespace, this is what it looks like. You work in Ignition, right? Okay. These are not Ignition tags. This is a namespace for the business. So just like if you go to a file share and there's some Excel spreadsheet you need to open up that has some important piece of information. How do you know where the Excel spreadsheet is? Well, how do you know? Well, there's some important Excel spreadsheet you have to open up on the shared drive. Someone has to show you. There's an important Excel spreadsheet, and it's here. And you click on this, and you click on this, and you click on this. Semantic hierarchy is if I taught you a hierarchy for data, and I said if there was anything that we have structured all the data in our business a certain way. And this way we use ISA 95. So enterprise, and then go to the site, and then you can go to the area in the business, and then you can go to the production line in that area, and then you can go to the cell in that production line. And if there is something important for that cell, like a file, it's going to be right next to the cell. It's going to be under the cell. There will be an Excel spreadsheet for that cell. It's a semantic hierarchy that tells you how to get to the data you're looking for. Everything we build is like this. So when we say UNS, it's like this. Guess what? Tesla does the same thing. There is a namespace for a Tesla car. There is a namespace for every sensor on the car. So the sensor publishes its namespace to the center of the car. And if I go to the center of the car, I have all the data for that car. Then I stream it up to a broker in the cloud, and there's a namespace for Model S's in the cloud. And then, go ahead.
You're also helping to, because you're integrating with multiple application systems, you're also helping with the difference. Like this is called this over here and this over here, but it's really the same.
Correct.
That's a big part of it.
So that's naming conventions. Yep. So semantic hierarchy is the organization of data, and naming convention is what we call the data, right? We have a standard for semantic hierarchy, and we have a standard for the way that what we call things. Okay. Generally, I do not get technical in these types of presentations because there will be 10 people who know what I'm talking about and 30 people fall asleep. Okay, so I'm going to move on from the technical element, but that part is important. Okay, everybody know what iterative development is? Iterative, right? So it is the idea that what I'm going to build today, the problem I solve today is going to stand on the shoulders of what I solved yesterday. Okay? Those of you who work in manufacturing or you work in industry, how do you solve problems? Do you do it iteratively, or do you start from scratch with every new problem? Really? So every time you build a machine, right? Let's say I'm going to put a new production line in. What does that process look like? All right, let's walk through it, right? So I'm going to put a new production line in my facility. The average legacy manufacturer, the first thing they do is they write a functional specification and a sequence of operations for that machine. It needs to have these functions. It's got to operate in this sequence. Okay. Then they'll write an alarm definition. They'll say it has to have these types of alarms, has to have these types of permissions. Okay. You could reuse that over and over and over again. Okay. So let's move that aside, but we do that iteratively. Then what's the next thing we do? We put out our project, we write an RFP, and we put it out to bid to all of our machine builders. There's an RFP in there, and we've got some standards associated with it, and a bunch of machine builders bid on it. Let's say the machine builder who didn't do it last time does it this time. Okay? So then what do? Machine builder goes back to their shop, they put their PLC programmers on it, they put their HMI developers on it, and they build the machine. And what does the code look like under the hood? However the fuck they want to do it. Okay? So, and it's going to be different than the way the last machine builder did. Then what do? They land the machine, they're all done. They land the machine on the plant floor, and then they do what? They do what's known as a functional acceptance test. And that functional acceptance test is just a list of functions. Did it pass? Did it not? When I push this button, did that thing happen? Yep, it did. What's the one thing that legacy manufacturers never have in their request for proposal or in their functional acceptance test? It is the transmission or structure of the data from that asset to the infrastructure. Well, guess who has that? Tesla. So when they land a machine, the last thing any machine builder does is points that machine to the infrastructure and streams the data in a structure that makes sense. So that unified namespace I showed you, they literally have a node for their asset, and they tell the asset to be transmitted to a specific place in the business. Now imagine you're an integrator, and you're an integrator, right? Imagine if every single machine build you ever did, every functional acceptance test you ever did, ended with you streaming the data to some infrastructure. Okay, you guys have heard me talk about building self-aware systems, right? Tesla's ecosystem is self-aware. So when something is online, everybody can see it. When it's not online, no one can see it. You know who else can see it? Not just people. Software can see it. So I can build visualizations that are self-aware. I don't have to directly connect the software, the interface, to something directly. I can have it react to infrastructure. So why is that important? Why is that important? Well, when we get to the machine learning piece, so this is unified namespace. This is how these plants are built. But when we get to machine learning, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to do two things. Number one, regression. We're trying to predict some outcome Y from a value X. But number two, we're trying to look for patterns in data we can't see with the naked eye. Okay, so what has happened over the last year in manufacturing? Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of examples, right? So the first example is this. This looks like a unified namespace, right? It looks like what I showed you earlier. This is a product called Reveal. It's made by a company called Trumbull. Okay, this is a artificial intelligence platform. What this platform does is it plugs into a digital infrastructure, and then it just finds patterns in data you can't see with the naked eye. Here are some amazing things that this platform does for their customers with no integration time. Literally install the software, plug into the digital infrastructure, that namespace I showed you. They just showed me today, I asked for permission to share this. They just showed me today, they plugged this into a bunch of molding machines, and they found a correlation between, the correlation that the manufacturing was using, they were doing extrusion molding, and they were making like electronic connectors, okay? They found a correlation between the torque of a upstream process that was totally unrelated to the extrusion process to the weight of the mold. And the customer had no idea. No idea whatsoever. And they predicted, oh, your set point of 68 is 20 points too high. It's supposed to be 48. And what happened when the customer moved it from 68 to 48 the way they were asked? Their quality went from 93% to 99 and 3/9%. Like that. Not clipboard, process engineer. But what's important here? Without the infrastructure, okay, without the infrastructure, this is not possible. Okay? Without all data, this is not possible. without semantic hierarchy, this is not possible. Okay. This is Tulip. Anybody familiar with Tulip?
I can.
Tulip is a platform based in Massachusetts, software platform. And what most manufacturers are using it for is they put it on machines, on workstations for manual processes. And what Tulip does is the operator can scan barcodes and all that kind of stuff. This uses a very common infrastructure to unified namespace. What I'm showing you here is how Tulip is leveraging artificial intelligence to increase the fidelity of manually collected data from 60% to in the 90s. That is the reliability of data human beings are inputting. So how are they doing that? Well, they're using ChatGPT to do it. Okay. So what this screenshot is of is Tulip integrated through the ChatGPT API. This little box here has a prompt that is pre-filled into it. What it says is this is a human machine interface. I am a box in a human machine interface, and I am an operator working on this type of line. I am going to be typing into you some information. I may not be good at writing what I'm typing in. I may spell poorly. I may have bad grammar. I may be lazy. There are one of 9 options for me to type in. There are 9 basic categories that they can type in. The operator types in their summary. The thing broke. They had to replace the nut, whatever it is. ChatGPT reformats it in one common language to be stored in a database. So no matter which operator is inputting their notes, it always comes out in the exact same voice. The same voice. And if the data is insufficient, ChatGPT prompts the operator to re-input it. Okay? Who here is not a believer in ChatGPT now? Anybody? All right, so now I'm going to show you. I want to show you this. What do you guys see here? I'm going to thank Eric Barnstadt for this. So Eric is he and I have gone toe to toe a million times. He works for Microsoft. He's part of the OPC Foundation. He's one of the most brilliant solutions architects in the world. His name is Eric Barnstadt. You can look him up, E-R-I-C-H. He's a German guy. He posted this just in the last 2 days on LinkedIn. So what this is a visual representation of all the digital twins that are running in Microsoft's digital twin on the globe right now. And this is a live representation. Okay. You can click on any of these tags. Well, Eric can. He has access to them. He can click on any of these tags and look at the data infrastructure of any of the customers who are using Microsoft Digital Twin and have given permission to put these unified namespaces together. You know how many companies are there? A lot. And they're all connected together. Okay? This just happened. This just happened. Like literally, they published this in the last 48 hours. Okay. What we have seen in the last year is 10 years of advancement in 12 months. There's no way to overstate it. 10 years of advancement in 12 months. The world changed since I was last here. And believe me, if I come back 1 year from now, we will have advanced 20 years. And that is an absolute empirical certainty. The world, the connected world is becoming the de facto architecture. It is no longer the thing you are working towards. It is the reality. And if you work someplace or you own a business that isn't focused on digital strategy or making data your primary commodity, you are burning your money in your front yard. And that is an absolute certainty. I want to close with this one piece here. Education, right? You're at UTD, right? Okay. All due respect. Okay. I gave and I mean as respectful as possible. I gave this speech at Mass MEP a couple of weeks ago. And the Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts, I gave the keynote. And the Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts, he went before me. And he was talking about all the amazing things that are happening in Massachusetts with technology. And he was talking about how educational institutions are really innovating and educating and the academics and the intellectuals are really driving advancement in manufacturing in Massachusetts. And then I had to go up on stage and tell everyone that he was full of shit. Okay. And what I said to him is this. I'm not gonna just say, I said with all due respect, Lieutenant Governor, I don't agree with that sentiment, and I'm gonna prove it. So I'm gonna ask 3 questions of the 300 manufacturers in this room. And I'm gonna show you just how poor academics and intellectuals are at driving innovation in economies. They were great in the 50s and the 60s. They're not good now. Okay, why? Because education lags about a decade behind the reality on the plant floor. And Moore's law tells us you don't have a decade anymore. Okay, that's the reality in education. So I asked 3 questions. Number 1, who in here can tell me what Industry 4.0 is? And if you raise your hand, I will call on you. Okay? Guess how many people raised their hand out of the 300 people? Nobody. Question number 2. Who here can tell me how digital transformation impacts manufacturers? Simple question. Guess how many people raised their hand? 0. Question number 3 was, how many of you here in this room have a digital strategy? And guess how many people raised their hand? 0. Not a single person. Actually, that's not true. There were 2 people in the room who had a digital strategy, but they were our students. They're in our IoT University, and we said, you're not allowed to raise your hand. But because they came to see us, right? And then I said to the Lieutenant Governor, I turned to him to tell him I rest my case, and he had already left. And this is a true story. Okay? Vicente has it on film. All right? That most of them were 200 to 500 employee manufacturers. There were some big ones. Purdue was there. Purdue Agribusiness. Rockwell Automation was there. All right. I want to leave you guys with this, the education piece. Okay. All is not lost. Okay. There are a lot of great things that are happening in education. A lot of great things. We have Jeff Rankinen, Dr. Rankinen at Penn Tech College. He's affiliated with us. He has his students learn from our community, part of our community. The future of education is the idea that I will go to university to learn is preposterous, obviously, right? I mean, does anyone actually learn anything in school? They learn socialization and you learn theory, but do you learn application, right? So education is going to change. It's going to speed up. What's happened here with Microsoft, this is a big deal that Microsoft released this image. This means Microsoft now gets it. They didn't get it. Now they do. More and more manufacturers. You will see over the next 12 months, if you work for a manufacturer, you work in industry, I promise you, just like everyone has a DEI initiative and everyone's got ESG initiatives, they will all have digital strategies. And they will all be building their infrastructures based on a unified namespace. Every single one of them, or they're dead men walking. All right, any questions?
Just so that
Yeah.
you conclude your last remarks. I was here last year.
Yeah.
So I did incorporate these questions, and here is my student who can tell you that I begin with Industry 4.0, talk about digital transformation, talk about this. May not be to the extent that you do,
Yeah.
but I refer them to your links.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So
So do you watch our videos? Okay, awesome. All right.
You repeat the question.
What he was saying was that he was here last year, and over the last year with his students, he has referred his students to our links and talks about digital transformation and Industry 4.0. The more important thing is the 4th Industrial Revolution is over. The 5th Industrial Revolution has started. And the 5th Industrial Revolution is the convergence of human intelligence and artificial intelligence. That's the 5th Industrial Revolution. That you are all supervisors of artificial intelligence. In our organization, and I didn't show you the business intelligence integration because I think I went over, but yeah, did I go over? Yeah, wait, am I good? I can still show it. In our organization, we have 25 or so people. the mandate is you will work with natural language processing all day long. You are a AI supervisor. You guys are using ChatGPT all day, students, right? Okay, so what you need to be working on is prompt engineering. Okay, so everyone should need to be working on fluency, talking to artificial intelligence.
There's Jeff for you, by the way.
Penn College, thank you, Jeff. Jeff Rankinen, my man. Okay, so Dr. Rankinen, thank you. So Penn College in Pennsylvania, they are on the absolute bleeding edge of post-secondary education. No question about it. The folks who are going, that their engineers who are going to that program there are coming out of college. So that's in the automation and robotics group. They are literally coming out of school and hitting the ground running. They are not spending a year learning how to actually work, how manufacturing. They're literally coming out and they are already fluent in all the technology and they've been doing the actual work. Why? Because what Jeff has done, and Jeff and his team, Clark Sarge and that whole group, they have connected the students to the actual work through the community while they're getting their education. That's the future of post-secondary, by the way. That's the future, okay? The business intelligence integration. What we told our team is this: you will have a ChatGPT window open all day long, and you are going to supervise artificial intelligence. That's your mindset. So you are no longer the executive assistant or the director of operations. You are no longer the digital media director, right? You are a supervisor of artificial intelligence who is going to do that job for you. And what you're going to focus on is fluency. You're going to learn how to talk to AI. You want to know why you have to do that? Because right now, if you've never used ChatGPT in here, ever, you know how you'll use it the very first time? Just like Google. Should you use it like Google? Absolutely not. In fact, if you use it like Google, you will get very inaccurate, very poor responses. What you have to do with ChatGPT and natural language processing is you have to tell it who it is. You have to tell it what its expertise is. You have to tell it what it knows. You have to tell it who you are. You have to tell it what you want to get from it, and then you put rules around its responses. That's called prompt engineering. Do you know who is the best person in our organization at prompt engineering? The person who makes the least amount of money. The guy who makes $22,000 a year. This is crazy. Over one 5-day period, he learned a different job every night for 2 hours. He became a lawyer one night. He wrote non-disclosure agreements. He built entire businesses. Okay? While our team is arguing and debating in our morning huddle on the next educational product that we're going to produce, Jared has already completed the entire plan with the 60-day rollout, and he emails it to everybody. And they're still arguing over it. So when it comes to natural language processing, which is your gateway, your entryway to artificial intelligence, okay? What are some of the rules that you should be living by? Number one, I told you, prompt engineering. Who is ChatGPT? Who are you? How do you want it to respond? What are the rules? What exception? If you want ChatGPT to tell you you're wrong, you have to first tell it, I want you to tell me I'm wrong if you think I'm wrong. If you think I should do something different than the instruction I gave you, I am telling you to tell me that. I am also telling you that I want you to end every response with an inquiry on what I want you to do next, and I want you to direct me with that inquiry. That fundamentally changes the outcomes that you get using natural language processing. Sure. So what it would be is something like this. Hey, ChatGPT, you and I are going to work together on a software development product. Okay? You are a senior software engineer with 30 years of experience. You have expertise in web development. You have expertise in Python development. You're primarily going to focus on simple software stacks that have backends, APIs, and UIs. I am a software developer who is going to collaborate with you on building a solution, but you will build the solution. Okay? I am going to give you a prompt. You are going to respond either with an answer or a question if you need clarification. If I give you a prompt that you believe is sending us in the wrong direction, I want you to suggest the prompt I should give to you. That's an example. Okay. Right. Number two, in your organizations, you need to figure out who is the most adept at using artificial intelligence. The reason we're going to talk about natural language processing is because it's the gateway for everyone to get involved in AI, right? It's the gateway. So who is the best at NLP? Who is the best at ChatGPT? So in your organizations, who's going to be the best at it? This is going to blow your mind. It is the people who have the highest emotional intelligence, not intellectual intelligence, not IQ, but EQ. And what we've discovered is it's because it's the people who can put themselves in other people's shoes. They are excellent at prompt engineering. Yeah. Well, but you have someone on your team. So what we've discovered over the course of the last 2 months using ChatGPT, for example, is that Jared is 10 to 20 times more efficient than the next closest employee in our team. Not even close. Yeah, go ahead.
Was that a human statistic? Was that data collected from a human?
Yep.
Only 60%.
There you go. Good. Yeah. What it is, it was measurable based on, we actually measured it based on activities he was doing. But here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy thing is if you look at our team, what's happened over the last couple of months is that the people who are the most adept at leveraging AI are pulling away. It's not a fixed distance between them and those who are behind them. They're pulling away. So that 20x return is becoming 40, it's becoming 60. The 8 hours Jared used to put in is becoming 3, and then it's becoming 90, and then it's becoming 15 minutes. He's doing a day's work before 8:15 every morning. And this is legit. What I'm telling you here. We talked in our staff meeting the other day. Jared is working incredibly smart, and everyone else is working incredibly hard. Okay? You want to work hard and smart. We got to figure out how to get Jared to work as hard as Josh does, but as smart as Jared does. Okay? Because then his output will be 30 people. It'll be 30 people. And I want to show you this example, and then I'll answer more questions.
Question online.
Yeah. So what we're looking at here is this is a unified namespace, by the way. Okay, so this is we're browsing a unified namespace for our business. Okay, and I've broken it up so that 4.0 solutions, and then we have a namespace called IIoT.university, and then we have our KPIs and our daily reports. All the data that's in here is coming from many different systems. So it's coming from the YouTube API, it's coming from the Stripe API, it's coming from Zoho. All of the code that was written to aggregate these together was written by ChatGPT. I was the prompt engineer. And this is the conversation that we've had. Now, this is over the course of a couple of months. Does anybody care to guess how long it took to develop this integration here? So this is all the code for those of you who are coders. Okay, this is all the code, but you've got these are all the different scripts that run, all the different configurations. Anybody who does software development, if you look at this, what would you guess this would have taken us to write? 40 hours, 80. If I'm really good, I probably could have written this in 40 hours. If I'm average, probably 80 hours. If I'm a junior, maybe 160 hours to get it so that it's fully debugged. This is run now for 60 days without a single failure. Every 15 minutes, our sales by day updates in the API. Every 24 hours, subscriptions by day and subscriptions by product updates once a day. Our YouTube analytics updates once a day or twice a day. So what is our top performing video? So if you look at media and we go to YouTube, we look at our analytics. This is dislikes, likes, everything is collated together from all these various different systems. Anybody care to guess how long it took me to do that with ChatGPT? Through this conversation.
30% over there where your words, your words.
I just, the truth is he is better. He actually is faster than I am. 91 minutes. Start to finish, 91 minutes. Guess how much the quote was? So for the business intelligence developer that I went to and gave them the functional specification for, guess how much the quote was? It was $18,000.
And the timeline was what?
6 weeks.
Oh,
6 weeks. So $18,000, 6-week lead time. I did it in 91 minutes. What's that?
Who wrote the spec?
ChatGPT wrote the spec. Yeah. In fact, at the very beginning, the functional specification is at the very beginning. So that same prompt I told you, we started with functional spec. In fact, what I said was, give me the steps we have to go through to write all of our code. And it started with concept, stating the problem, stating the solution, and then functionally specifying the solution. And then I said, write the functional specification. Not only that, ChatGPT writes all of the markdown README. So for example, so if here, since I've got all right, this is our oh crap. Let me reconnect.
So all these postings where people say GPT is so 3 months ago, here's all the new stuff you really should be using.
Don't listen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like anybody who's talking about auto GPT and all that stuff, don't listen to those people. The question number one you ask anybody, there's a very important distinction here. Anybody who's listening online, I'm going to show you this here in a second. Whenever you listen to somebody, you need to ask 4 questions. It's the same questions I ask before I ever speak. So before I got up here, I asked myself 4 questions. Number one, why should any of you listen to me? Like, why should you listen to me? Right? I mean, I just might be good at talking, right? Number 2, what am I going to say? Number 3, what are you going to hear? Those are not always the same thing. Number 4, what will you say is the most valuable thing you get away from this? I'm going to ask you what the most valuable thing was, and hopefully I was right. You need to ask the same question. Why should I listen to them? What are they saying? What am I hearing? And what do I think is valuable about what they said? It's I call this the PowerPoint paradox. Okay. How do you know that a PowerPoint presentation is garbage? My rule is
There's more than 3 slides. More than 3 slides.
Here's how you know a PowerPoint presentation is garbage. Okay. When you ask this question, what did I learn from this? And you can't articulate it. How do you know a resume is garbage? A job resume.
You don't know what the person does.
No, it's close. If you ask this question, what are they good at? And you can't answer the question.
What do they bring?
Do you know I just interviewed somebody today? We interviewed a new salesperson today. You know, I never looked at her resume. And I told her that. I've never looked at your resume. I didn't look at Matt's resume. I don't look at anyone's resume until I've decided I want to hire them. Why? Because a fucking resume is not going to tell me anything. It's going to tell me how good they are at writing resumes. And I don't sell resumes. It's the same thing with PowerPoint presentations. It's the same thing with the people online who are doing this. The first question you ought to ask them, whenever someone tells you you should do something, why should I listen? You don't do it like a dick. You just ask an honest question. Why should I listen to you? If somebody asks me why you should listen to me, I would start with, I like the fact that you asked that question. I've raised my kids, by the way. And since my kids were little kids, I've said, never take what I've said at face value. You will never hear me say because I said so. If you think I'm wrong, you tell me I'm wrong. You make me defend my position. You make them defend their position. Okay? All right, let me show you this real quick. So you see we got a little README file there.
Like if-
Francisco
like if
said,
the-
by the way, ChatGPT wrote my resume and it makes me look really.
So,
Good job.
so even ChatGPT wrote the README file. I wrote exactly 0. Not a single line of code came off of these fingers.
But to point out, just to clarify.
Yeah.
You're talking about Zoho and Stripe.
Yep.
Well documented, good resource to pull from, so it's gonna
Sure.
be more effective. There are a lot of things where
But
data is
the
not-
vision system,
Yeah.
the vision system that came back, the human pose estimation 0007 has no documentation.
But it had well-formed data.
It had well-formed data. What I had to do was figure out as the developer, how do I teach ChatGPT what the data set of human pose estimation
Right.
0007? How do I teach it?
Just give us a quick favor. Say it's something like that. You're asking it multiple questions.
Yep.
Are your questions changing and the responses are growing and becoming more robust? Or are you taking an answer and like copying them over somewhere because they fit? Or like how do you accumulate this stuff? It seems like a little bit of a object.
So,
Form it into a cohesive.
so here's a little bit of insight. What I do is I mind map my conversation with ChatGPT. You guys know what a mind map is? All right. So I use what's known as MindNode, and I use MindNode to map my conversation. So then what I can do is I can go back to the individual nodes and ask them to collate them together. So I can say to ChatGPT, what I did to ChatGPT here before this conversation, before this presentation, I wanted to show you this. I wanted ChatGPT to repeat back to me what we have talked about over the last 2 months on our business intelligence integration. You tell me what our conversation has been. Okay. Really important trick is you remind ChatGPT of what we've been talking about. So you get to correct ChatGPT. Okay. By the way, ChatGPT is ultimately not going to win. ChatGPT is not going to be the winner. It's going to be some open natural language processor. It's not going to be, Microsoft is not going to own artificial intelligence. Okay. I mean, here's the thing I can guarantee. By the end of this year, we'll see our first legislation regulating artificial intelligence. It'll be voted on. It'll be passed this year. We will never make it to December without the first legislation. Right? Okay. It will absolutely happen this year. Okay. All right. So what should you guys do going forward? All right. Digital strategy. Okay. What is our plan to make data our primary commodity? You guys already had those questions answered. When it comes to ChatGPT, those of you who raised your hand who are not believers, I want to personally open the invitation to you to allow me to change your mind through allowing us to train you how to actually use ChatGPT. And I will do that pro bono.
Your question wasn't, are you not a believer? Your question was, do you think it's overhyped? I can believe in it. I still think it's
It's
overhyped.
way underhyped. It's way underhyped. Yeah.
Well, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. So Josh, make sure he gets both ChatGPT workshops and then set up a call between us. Carrie?
He can come to that's Chris, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he lives right down the street from my office.
All right. So give him we have 2 ChatGPT workshops we did.
Yeah,
That
is that Carrie?
that's Carrie.
Oh,
Yep.
hi.
What was our question online? Okay.
What advice would you give the person who has no software or hardware background and yet wants to develop skills near the industry for auto marathon? And where should they start?
Wait, so they have no software skills. They want to get involved in what? Let me ask you this question. What are your skills?
I work for
you're
Toyota.
answering, what are your skills? And what
I
I want you to answer is, what are you good at? Okay. Do you know what this is? Everybody familiar with Dolly? This is an offshoot of ChatGPT. All right. Right. So Dolly is at the very beginning, but I gave Dolly the prompt. Give me a minimalist drawing of a machine operator working on an industrial process. Okay. And then Dolly gave me those 4 options. By the end of the year, I'll be able to tell Dolly to put me in that photo. Put me in front of that process. And I want you to make that process a batch process with 2 stainless steel tanks of 500-gallon capacity each. Be able to put me in by the end of the year. By the end of the year. Next question before they respond.
Maybe able to do some of that now.
Pretty close. Actually, the issue is that if it uses my photo, which I can give it my, yeah, if I give it my photo, it like distorts my face. It doesn't make, it's not perfect.
Here's another online question. Many companies are cautious with GPT output because of liability, copyright, or origin issues.
Yep.
How do you protect your clients from the same?
Right. So everybody should be writing human resources policies for AI and workflow. So we actually just completed ours. So all of our employees know what it is they're allowed to. They haven't gotten the policy yet, but they already know what they're allowed to put into ChatGPT and what they can't. Right. So obviously, no intellectual property. Like everyone needs training for this. You need to train your organization. For goodness sakes, you don't want to limit your people. You don't want to tell your people they can't use ChatGPT. This is the equivalent of a manufacturer telling their employees they can't get on the Wi-Fi with their phones. Okay. I mean, by the way, if you work somewhere that restricts your ability to get on the Wi-Fi, go get a different job, because that's one of the dead companies.
Education saying you can't.
Yeah, right. It's exactly, because for me, I wrote my master's is in education. So I wrote my thesis on constructivism. So the constructivist model of education, right? And people ask all the time, why is it my kids would say, Dad, why do I need to learn how, the quadratic equation, or why do I need to learn negative b plus or minus 4, or Pythagorean theorem, right? And the answer is, you don't need to learn it how to use it. You need to learn it to wire your brain to do other things, right? That's constructivism, right? So the important part of the calculator is using a calculator only teaches you how to push the buttons. Monkeys do that. Monkeys push buttons. Human beings think. So you got to wire the brain. Fluency in ChatGPT is rewiring your brain. Okay. And what did they say what they were good at? Okay. So if somebody wanted to get started in Industry 4.0, though, the first place they should go is go to IIoT.university and take the IIoT mini course. It's free. Take that mini course and watch all of our free content. I mean, we try to give away as much as we possibly can for free. I mean, I've spent $3 million of my own money since 2018 on digital media. Yeah. We have a Discord server, which is a great place to go. If you go to iiot.university/Discord, there are 5,000 or so Industry 4.0 professionals in there. There are channels for basically every topic in Industry 4.0. It's another great place to go. The other thing that I would really recommend is go get a job working in a manufacturer on the production line. I want to tell this story real quick. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. And my dad was a working class guy, is a working class guy. He's retired now. But I grew up in a trailer park. Like first person in my family to go to college. And I threw my own graduation party after I graduated with my first degree. My dad came to my graduation party, and I'm sitting in my chair. We're having a barbecue, and he comes up and he pats me on the back and he says, I'm really proud of you. I'm super proud of you. But I'm here to give you some bad news. Nothing you learned in school matters. It doesn't make a difference in the real world at all. I'm here to tell you the same thing. Absolutely nothing you learn in school is going to apply in the real world. Apply. The education matters. My father told me your real education starts today. So when you start your new job on Monday, and I started at Cargill de-icing, I worked in a salt mine in my career. He said, don't go in like every other college grad, thinking you know everything, because you've been taught from the best professors money can buy. What you do is you go in humble, you keep your mouth shut. You find the person who's been there for 25 or 30 years, who knows how the business actually operates, and you learn everything from them. If that's a mechanic, you learn from a mechanic. If it's an operator, you learn from an operator. If it's a janitor, you learn from the janitor. And that was the single greatest piece of advice I got from my father, because I kept my mouth shut. And working with the operators and trying to learn from those operators laid the foundation for all of this. The fundamental difference between if people want to know how to do what I'm doing, the fundamental difference between me and basically everyone else in our industry who does this kind of stuff, I spent the first 10 years of my career on the plant floor. I was a mechanic, I was an electrician, I was an operator before I was an engineer. It made all the difference. I learned in that journey, you know, the smartest people in any organization, it's the people who do the actual work. I'll tell one other story. When I worked for Borg Warner Automotive, tier 1 automotive supplier, this is my last job in manufacturing before I became an integrator. That was a union facility. We had a strike coming up, and I was an engineer. And so they brought in all the company people, all the people who were not in the union, to have a conversation with us about what we're going to do during the strike. And there's like 300 of us in the room. And at this point, I'd been in manufacturing 10, 12 years. So I didn't keep my mouth shut anymore. I knew stuff. And they said, when the UAW goes out on strike, we're going to run the equipment. So we're going to break you guys up, and you guys are going to run your areas. You're going to do the production. I'm like looking around in the room, and I'm like, God, that's a horrible idea. And so nobody raised their hand. And so I just raised my hand. General manager was in the front of the room, and I'm like, he's like, yes, Walker. He knew what was coming. I'm like, am I the only one who thinks that's a horrible idea? Like, do we really think they're monkeys? Like, do you think that I can go out there and replace the guy who's been running that machine for 22 years just because I sit at a desk and I have a degree? You got to be kidding me. That guy knows when that machine's broken by ear. He knows when bolt is loose by the way it shakes. We're going to break everything. We will produce nothing and we will break everything. And I learned in that moment, in that specific moment, that the real problem in manufacturing is that we don't understand who the really smart people are. And it's the people who do the actual work. Okay? Digital transformation, by the way, is about unlocking the potential in those people. That's actually where it starts. That connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize. All those ideas come from the people who already know what the business's problems are. Right? That's what digital transformation is. So if you want to get into Industry 4.0, go work for a manufacturer first and work on the plant floor and do the actual work. That's my recommendation to you. At the same time, learn Python, learn SQL, okay? Learn MySQL, Postgres, go to Codecademy, come to IoT.university, okay? Go to a community college, okay? Go to a 2-year tech school and get a basic tech education and then decide if you want to go on beyond that. That's my recommendation. Right. Any other questions? We good?
Ron Taylor says, working on the plant floor helped me know the real of the manufacturing and business. So he agrees with you.
Yes. All right. I truly appreciate your guys' time. Yeah, Matt. Connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize, find patterns, predict, report, solve. Hey, I wanted to really quick, I want to introduce you guys to these guys here. You guys know Bike Trail? You guys know these? So I was actually going to mention them in my speech real quick, but so these guys are developing, this is one of the things I was going to announce, like what's happened in the last year. Like in manufacturing, we've known that like data operations is important, like managing data is important. But believe it or not, in manufacturing, one thing that we don't think is important, or at least we don't put a lot of effort into, is managing hardware. So Bike Trail is a startup that is focused on doing ops for hardware. It's hardware ops. It's firmware management. It's licensing management. It's OS management. It's application management. And when these guys came and when I was first introduced to them, you know, this is something that is long missing in our industry. You guys will hear about technology that's outdated, or you know, we don't want to put it on the network because it hasn't been patched in 21 years. That's what these guys did.
We are raising money,
Yeah.
so.
Brenda wastes no time. No time. If you have a checkbook,